Welcome everybody to the June Finance and General Purposes Committee meeting. We have an agenda in front of us, which I'll run through now. Agenda item 2501, apologies for absence.
Sorry, can I just point out, I think it may be important, but I think there's a word missing in the penultimate sentence before the agenda. I think that word is not.
Where?
Yeah, before committee.
Oh,
Just so we can correct it in the future.
I didn't even look at that because that
So what are we looking at, Barry?
fine paragraph.
Means is not permitted.
Yes.
It's permitted at all times.
It is permitted.
It is permitted.
Yeah,
Well, then it doesn't make sense. Is permitted without the
yeah, people can just come in and seek to be recorded, can't you?
So do we have to give consent?
No,
I'm not going to discuss this now because it's a matter which we can talk about later on. Because I'm going to stick to the agenda. Thank you, Councillor Shearer. 2501, apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence? Ian's apologised, hasn't he, IQ? Did he send his apologies?
who?
IQ, Ian.
I don't think he's on.
Okay, he's on.
Yeah.
Well, he wouldn't have done then, would he? So 25.102 is irrelevant. Minute 2502, declarations of interest. Does anybody have under 250201 any pecuniary interests that are disclosable? Seeing none, 250202 to declare any other interests.
We got slightly carried away here, because after that it says Councillor Chaplin Museum Trust.
Yes.
Which sounds like I'm declaring an interest in an item that isn't even on the agenda.
Oh.
You like to be ahead of yourself,
I have no idea.
ready for the next time the museum trust comes
We'll
up.
never put it on the agenda.
It looks like it's something that came out of a minute at some point.
Yeah, I know, it's not like that.
Maybe because they had an application for an award or something.
Before. So it's undeclared. Councillor Chaplin is not declaring that because it's not happening. Good. I'm glad we got the meeting off to a fine
start. Very snappy. Didn't used to be like this.
2503. This one is going to be quite simple. I hear no objections. Represented from interested parties. I see no interested parties. So we'll move on. Thank you. 2504, consideration of requests from interested parties. None. Move on. 2505, minutes of previous meeting, F&GP and Human Resources Committee meeting. So propositions to approve and sign those minutes for the meeting held on 1 February 2025. These can only be amended if there are grammatical or other errors. So I just ask for a proposer. Councillor Chappell, and a seconder, please. Councillor Clark. All those in favour? Wonderful. 2506, financial matters. 0601, to receive monthly accounts. Those are just to receive. But I will invite questions if anybody has any questions. No, seeing none. 250602, to consider the F&GP terms of reference. I'm going to suggest that in the light of 2603, to consider the financial regulations, that we don't discuss this tonight because we have, as I'll go through in a moment, a number of proposed changes to the financial regulations which need to be approved or not by council next week. And so it seems nonsensical to ask your agreement to terms of reference when they might be changed because the FinRegs changes might be approved or not. Does that make sense? There's no point in doing the terms of reference because they might change depending on the FinReg changes themselves. Councillor Chappell.
On the other hand, we do have to have terms of reference. So presumably what we should be saying is that the existing terms of reference will continue until the next meeting when they'll be reviewed. Otherwise we haven't got any.
That's a very, very good point, James.
except that unless you resolved at the previous meeting when you adopted them to actually put an end date on them, presumably they continue ad infinitum, and all we're doing is perhaps failing in our duty to have reviewed them annually, but we are reviewing them.
We have to, as a committee, as every committee does, send to the council for their approval our terms of reference next week. So we ordinarily would have to consider them tonight or ask, as David is saying, that the existing ones remain in situ. And so effectively, I am proposing the existing ones remain in situ because any changes that might be made as a result of the pin breaks can't be made until council have approved them. So is that a proposal you want to make, Commissioner?
No, I'm quite happy to propose it.
What I've written is, it was agreed that we defer the review of current terms of reference until after financial regulations have been approved.
Discussed and approved by council, yeah.
And so then, do we not need to say, and therefore, or just make clear that the existing terms of reference
Remain in place.
They haven't ended,
We're deferring them,
we're just deferring the review.
but we made a conscious decision to defer.
I haven't got in front of me is the standing orders as to whether they say anything like that they have to be reviewed at the first meeting.
I think,
Admittedly, I've got the same problem because we didn't do it in planning for various reasons. And I didn't think of this point then. But I have seen
No, it's a good question. Because I see exactly what James is saying, but unless we can go to council and say, this is what we're doing, council can't approve because standing orders say council approves, or terms of reference are sent to council for approval. So perhaps the proposal should be that this committee recommends that the existing terms of reference remain in place until such time as the financial regulations have been agreed by council and subsequent changes made, something along those lines. You're looking sceptical, Emma. Help me out.
I don't see the need.
It's moving,
Because let's say we forgot to review them.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have suddenly ended.
So there's nothing in standing orders that says we have to approve them before they can be used.
I think
No, you've got
We just have to
all you
consider
do
them.
is review them each year for any potential changes. You don't renew them, you just review them because you may
want to
make
change
some
them.
changes.
So the item is to consider the F&GP terms of reference. We've considered them. We may change them going forward, but at the moment we're leaving them as they are.
So we defer any changes.
Yeah,
Defer any changes, yeah.
defer.
So what have you written down?
I've written, it was agreed that we defer the review of the terms of reference until after financial regulations have been approved at the next full council meeting.
Fine. I'm happy with that as a
So,
proposal.
I'll second it.
Ian seconded it. All those in favour of that proposal? Thank you.
Yeah, not after having said
Enjoying it.
Let's move on then to 250603, which I thought would be the contentious one.
Probably easier than everything
On
else.
the back of this, it may or may not be. So rather later than we might have wanted, James and I have sat down with Emma and reviewed the financial regulations. We have made some changes, which I'm going to go through with you now. I won't ask you tonight for your approval of these because you will want to go away and consider, but I am going to ask you to let me know by close of business tomorrow if you want any changes made, because I'd like to propose these to council next week in the papers to go out on Thursday of this week. And the reason I want to send them out as a proposal on Thursday of this week is because I don't want to leave this until July. I want to get done in June if we can. So what I'm going to do is highlight the big changes we've made and then ask you to take these away and let Emma or me know by close of business tomorrow so that I can adjust, or Emma and I can adjust as necessary on Thursday to get them sent out with the papers for the full council meeting. Are we happy with that as a proposal? So there's one really non-contentious set of changes that have been made, and that's we're changing him or to they, and we're changing chairman to chair. I'm assuming there's no objections to that, because this is 2025.
Well, the foundations of the world there.
Hearing none. There are a couple of bigger changes though, so I'm going to go through those now. The first change is under 1.7. If you look at 1.7, at the moment, it reads that the council shall authorise any grant or single commitment in excess of £5,000. That basically means that no committee has got the authority to approve any payment in excess of £5,000. They have the authority to approve lower limits than that, but the council at the moment retains the authority to authorise any grant or single commitment in excess of 5. We want to change that to 7.5. And the reason we want to change that to 7.5 is because there's a proposal coming from estates that the estates authorisation limit is set at £7,500. And it would be anomalous for the council to say we have the authority, the sole authority, to approve payments in excess of 5. So that is a change to accommodate the proposal from estates. Do I have any questions? Or comments or thoughts?
Sounds a good idea.
Well, the only other thing you could do is reduce estates to 5.
Estates at the moment is 5.
I thought you said
No, estates at the moment is 3.
It's 3.
Estates at the moment is 3, but what it means for estates is that they have to keep coming back to council and deferring approval. And given that, we'll talk about this next week as well, given that estates have got 7 councillors, i.e. half the council on their committee, the proposal that would come from estates is to say we want the ability to approve payments of up to £7,500 to facilitate and speed up decision making and action.
so any committee can approve expenditure up to 7.5. Just estates.
Just estates, that's the proposal. And if that proposal is, I can mention a second if I may, if that proposal is accepted, like we can't have 1.7 saying 5 because there's an anomaly there. Emma,
Just thinking, obviously, the own finance has a £3,000 limit. Would you be looking to increase that?
not necessarily, not necessarily. I mean, we can look at that. If council make a decision on estates, we can look at F&GP, but I've got no, my focus was on estates because that's our largest committee, it's our biggest spend, and delays there mean that we just get further
I mean,
and
I
further
know
delays.
we haven't, I'm just thinking of, we've had the odd occasion where we've had a grant
Just like
that was significantly more than
the
£3,000.
BA,
Yeah,
Junior
so
Football Club
would
2022.
would there be a merit in it being increased to 7.5 with finance?
I can see merit in that. I think if this group and, this committee and council agree 1.7 and 7.5, it allows us the opportunity to review other council committee spending limits later. But the prime thing is to move it for estates. You're looking puzzled.
No, it's just that when you first said it, I thought it was 5,000. You said 3,000.
It's 3,000.
It's 5,000. Yeah.
So it's 3,000. The thought was increase it to 5. I'd like to increase it to 7.5. Sorry, estates would like to increase it to 7.5 to facilitate decision making. That's where we are at the moment, and that's a major change, but I don't want to put that change forward without debating it at this committee. So any other thoughts around the table about that particular clause?
Well, I have to say, looking at that grant point, I can't see any logic in the Estates Committee having power to spend up to 7.5, and this committee not having a similar power.
I know.
So, either both move or neither, to my mind.
Yeah.
And I can see the logic in moving it. After all, within the context of the entire budget, 7.5 is still not a
We need
big
to go to
1.2%. So again?
we need, I agree with David.
Yeah, I agree.
To get them and see.
I hadn't thought about it. It's a good idea. So when we look at the FGPs,
Yeah.
we can move that to 7.5. If it gets approved, David raises a very good point. It's 1.1% of our precept.
But also actually further down in the financial regulations where it says about a delegated committee, we've changed, obviously brought that in line and changed that to 7.5.
Yeah.
So that would mean the finance committee being delegated
Standing committee.
would have an increase.
So we're looking at changing 1.7 and 515. Scroll down to 515, Emma, please. Talk amongst yourselves. So 515, the last bullet point under 515, individual purchases within an agreed budget for that type of expenditure may be authorised by, last bullet, the council for all items over £7,500. So that's really just tidying it up and making it consistent.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's that point. We're also looking at changing clause 4. If you could scroll up to clause 4, please, Emma. And we're looking at changing clause 4 in two areas. The first area, which in an ideal world, Max, I would have taught you beforehand.
So this is the.
This is a heads up. This is a heads up. At the moment, under 4.3, we are asking for a forecast for the following 3 financial years, taking account of the lifespan of assets and cost implications of repair or replacement. We have touched on this before. We don't do that. We should do that. It is something I'm hoping that estates can do, if not this year, then next year. But what we're doing is changing the 3-year horizon to a 5-year horizon. And the reason we're doing that is it's been pointed out to us, James has pointed this out, that NCALC recommendation is that for councils with a large building estate, it needs to have a 5-year horizon, because if you think about the amount of money we've got invested in our estates and the length of time we need to, if we did it properly, to save up for those repairs, a 5-year horizon is recommended by NCALC, and so that's what we're proposing. You're not there yet, you're not even at 3 years yet, but it gives us an aim. But I wanted to bring that to your attention. I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments on that.
Seems very sensible.
David, you're looking. Well, I'd come to you because you are the considered person.
It's just that I've been around so long. The only thing that went through my mind, and then I rejected it, was that the lifespan of any one council is 4 years. But on the other hand, if you linked it to the lifespan of the council, by the time you got to sort of April in the last year of the council, you'd be actually saying you can only plan ahead for 1 month. So, I thought the thought, I rejected it at the same time, which is why I'm looking slightly quizzical.
Sorry, just on that point, it would presumably be in the council and residents' interest that it wasn't just the lifespan of the council, it was
Yes.
the lifespan of beyond it.
Yeah.
Because some people might be here longer before.
And well, hopefully you will. And this will be done every year. So in the 3rd year of the council, we're looking into the 4th year, the 3rd year of the following council, because we owe it to people.
Yeah.
Cool. And the next change we're looking at making, and again, these are major changes, there are some minor ones which I can touch on, but the major one, last major one, we're changing 4. Clause 4. Yeah. This is not the Labour clause 4, this is our clause 4. We are changing, I think it's 4.4 or 4.3. 4.3. We're looking to say no later than November each year, we're looking for the Finance Officer, Paul, to produce a budget for F&GP to look at it in November, because we ought to be approving it in November and have the ability to defer it if we need to December, because it needs to be with Northants County Council January. So at the moment, the requirement is to say no later than December each year. The finance officer shall prepare, but I think that doesn't give us enough time. So we're looking for November to produce the budget. And again, I invite comments and questions. David.
In 4.2, it talks about doing something at least annually in November.
That's
So
budget.
is that going to change to say October? Because otherwise,
It should be
there's an awful
October.
lot going on in November.
Right. It should be October, Emma.
Yes, but unfortunately, over the last 2, maybe 3 years, the increase for the percentage increase for the scales that all the staff are on doesn't actually come in until about the end of October, sometimes even beginning of November. So,
In practice, we have considered the draft budget in November normally, haven't we? So it all sort of just keeps in.
yeah.
It just ties it up a little bit.
And then John, you were going to talk about, I think it was 4.5, because that budget timetable then necessitates the committees actually producing their budget plans
By the end of
in
September.
September.
So that fits with the states, I think, Max. And again, I apologise for not having discussed this with you before. You've got your annual walk around in August. It would be good in September to be able to say, this is what we want to spend next year. And actually what I'd really like to do with the states, or really like the states to do if it were possible, is to determine set amounts for the larger expenditures, at least over the following year, but ideally further, so that we can start to manage our reserves more, for want of a better word, appropriately. At the moment, we've just got a big figure in general reserves. And I think, to your point at the last estates meeting, and as Ian has updated me, we make decisions at the F&GP about spends we're going to make for estates and approve for estates. But unless we set aside a special reserve for estates, it gets lost in the mix. And your point at the last estates was, we don't know what we've got. I think we do, because we created the F&GP last year. But I think if we made it a special reserve, we could say, that's what you've got, it's in there, it's yours, spend it as you will. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it would certainly ease things up.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we end up with estates with so many things being deferred because they're not in budget.
Right. Quite. Or when they've been in budget, they then get overlooked or not.
Yeah.
So it's really, again, a matter of tidying it up and saying, if we're going to do it, let's do it, and let's put the money aside. So we're hypothecating that money for that spend.
Sounds good.
Looking for David's nod of approval. And there are small changes like, there is one set of terms for England and one set of terms for Wales. So we changed it to England because we're not about to take Wales over. We've also, I can't remember any other major changes we've made. I think they're all fairly minor changes. But please,
What I'll do is
colleague,
I'll send these out.
with the track changes on.
Yeah, with everything on, so everybody can see it from this meeting, so they'll be out either later tomorrow, first thing tomorrow. But then the view that they will then go into the pack before council
On Thursday. And perhaps the easiest thing to do would be to say, if Emma can get them out tonight, if you can, fab, tomorrow morning, first thing, if you can, please let either Emma or me know if you've got any objections.
That might be tricky if they come out, say, at 10 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, because I'm not likely to see it until 6, 7 in the evening, which is going to be beyond close of play.
Yeah.
Unless we extend that deadline to close of play Thursday instead of Wednesday.
I don't really want to do that if I can avoid it, David, only because the papers go out Thursday lunchtime. So we're including the papers at Thursday lunchtime. So I wonder if we could say, ideally, close of play Wednesday, but if not, first thing Thursday before lunchtime? Yeah. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Again, only objections, because if you're approving it, then we'll take approval as read unless you object, if that's okay. Everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
Very much.
I don't know if that was a proper council term, but it will do. In which case, I'd like to move us on to grant applications.
Got a grant from FAB.
So again,
We've got a grant from FAB coming up, so it's a proper.
grant application 250604 to consider the grant application from the Oundle Festival of Music and Drama. Just to put this in context, we have given this over a number of years. Emma, you were going to confirm how many years we've given the grant to
The
OFMG for.
spreadsheet that I attached takes you up to about 2010, but David may say that they've been having the grant since before that.
I've been on since 1986, and as far as I can recall, we've been doing it since then.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think we can necessarily hit every single year, but it's almost invariably. I don't think we've ever literally refused them. In other words, if we haven't done it, it's because for whatever reason they did not ask.
And it's a de minimis amount, it's a very small amount. So discuss. Anybody have any questions or comments, please?
Well, the only point is that they've got a reserve of £17,000.
And they made £600.
And they weren't losing money last year, they made profit this year. Which just made me think, well, if their budget is 650, they're asking for 425, and I know it sounds a bit churlish, but why not just pay half of it? Because they seem to have plenty of money. I wouldn't want not to do it, because actually we get a good press out of it, and the mayor invariably presents prizes at the do and so on, treating stores. So I think we should make a grant, but perhaps in light of the size of the reserves to make it just that little bit smaller.
Thank you. Any other comments?
That sums up my thoughts exactly.
Thank you. So do I have a proposal?
I propose
David?
325.
Do I have a seconder? Max? All those in favour of a grant of 325 to OFMD? Wonderful, thank you. And our next item is I've lost it, beg your pardon.
It's the grant from FAB.
It's the grant from FAB.
Would you like to look at the grant from FAB?
Yes. Do I have any comments on the grant from FAB? Or
We
the
did
application
from the
from FAB?
past.
We have occasionally,
Yeah.
yes.
Right. I can find it for a while.
It tends to be for an event.
Yes, it tends not to be an annual one, but if they come up with something specific, we usually be pretty sympathetic to it.
So, thank you, David. Any other questions or comments on the application from FAB?
My only comment, because I think they do a fantastic job, and it seems like the sort of thing we should support, is whether we should offer them a little bit more than 400. If they cost us 700, are we able to get 500, for example?
Comments on either David's or Ian's views?
I'm not entirely convinced we can offer more than what they've asked for. I mean, they've asked for, if they wanted more, they should have asked for it, realistically. They have an important role in the community. They clearly are aimed at disadvantaged groups. £400 is very little in the scheme of things.
Okay, any other comments or questions? In that case, could I have a proposal for something? Does anybody want to propose
I propose that we give them what they asked for.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Mike, all those in favour? Fab. So we've approved a grant of £400 for Fab, and we've approved a grant for OFMD as well.
325.
We now move on to item 2507, any other business for report only. Max. James.
Yes. Assuming the FinRegs go through next week, I can see that there will be some work to do for the finance team updating some of the financial documents. And I'd like to place on record that I will be volunteering to assist and review as the RFO requires. I just wanted to let everybody know so that A, they don't feel left out if they want to join in with all of that wonderful stuff, and B, whether or not somebody was going to say, oh, that should be a working party. But other than that, I should be offering my services to you.
Yeah, I'm very happy with that. You've done a great job on standing rules and FinReg, so great.
Just coming back on that, obviously both yourself and Mike being verification counsellors, when Paul comes back from holiday, we'll arrange to sit down, so there'll be certain things that we can possibly look at and do then as well. So if you're up for that as well.
Yeah,
Great. Thank you for that offer, James. Mike, any other business?
No.
Ian, any other business?
No.
And nor do I. So at 8 o'clock, 1 minute past 8, I'm declaring the meeting closed, even without a gavel. Thank you all for your attendance and for your support.
Thank you.